Hello and welcome to the third video on Sonnet 29 written by William Shakespeare. In this video, we'll learn line 9 to 14 of the sonnet. Before we learn the third quatrain, let's have a quick recap of the first two quatrains. In the first 8 lines, we found that the speaker feels unlucky and worthless. He is depressed and lonely, thinks God has forsaken him, looks down on himself. He is jealous of people around him and he is dejected and feels in low spirits. If we look at this pattern closely, we can find that this is something anyone can go through when they are in a difficult situation. First, they feel unlucky and feel that fortune didn't favor them. Then they may feel that they are of no worth, people are looking down on them, etc. Then the next stage is they are feeling depressed and lonely. They may alienate themselves from others and they feel an outcast. Next step is they communicate with God and they feel that God didn't listen to their prayer. The next step will be looking down on themselves, lacking trust in their capacity. That will lead to jealousy. They'll feel jealous of people around them because they don't have any trust in themselves. And next stage is feeling dejected, feeling that they are not interested in anything in the world. They stop enjoying things that they usually were interested in. So, in the ninth line of the sonnet, we find the speaker talking about despising himself or blaming himself or hating himself because of his low self esteem. So, the same thing happens to anyone who undergoes this situation. Now, let's look at the paraphrase of these lines. Yet in these thoughts myself almost despising, haply I think on thee, and then my state, like to the lark at the break of day arising from sullen earth, sings hymns at the heaven's gate. Yet whenever I think like this, almost hating myself, I think about you, and then I feel like a bird at the break of day that flies up from the ground and sings songs at the gates of heaven. Now let's look at the explanation of these lines. The speaker addresses the person he loves in these lines. Traditionally, it is believed to be a young man. He is believed to be a young man, directly referring to him as thee. The speaker refers to him as thee or you. The speaker's relationship with this person seems strong, even sustaining. He turns to that relationship as a source of comfort during difficult periods. The rest of his life outside this relationship seems a mess. Everything around him is a mess, but this particular relation or person is a ray of hope in his life. Now, the speaker describes the effect that the thought of his beloved has on his state or emotional well being. The word state is important because it occurs thrice in the poem. The fact that the lark rises from sullen earth, the lark is a songbird which flies high. So early in the morning, the lark rises from the dark or gloomy earth, and what happens, everything is brighter now. So that comparison of sullen earth and break of day, that is actually telling us that the day is much happier than night, and daybreak is actually compared to the dawning of a thought. The thought is actually bringing light into his life, like morning. As the lark sings hymns at the heaven's gate, hymn is a prayer song. The lark is singing hymns at the heaven's gate, so the poet's soul is invigorated, rejuvenated by the thought of the beloved. And it is singing, his mind is singing prayer songs to the heaven. So you can compare this with what he had told about heaven earlier or God earlier, that God is deaf or heaven is deaf and not God is not listening to his prayers. Now suddenly, without anything new happening, just because of the thought of his beloved friend, he has changed his attitude towards everything, including God. Now let's look at the symbol of lark. The lark that appears in line 11 is doubly symbolic. The lark is a morning bird. The poet Chaucer refers to it as the messenger of day. Shakespeare himself frequently mentions it as a timekeeper, a bird whose habits help human beings organize their daily tasks at a time when timekeeping devices were not there. For example, in the work Love's Labour's Lost, he has written, Merry larks are ploughmen's clocks. So, what happens to the speaker when he compares himself to the lark? It suggests that the speaker has achieved some kind of reconciliation with his situation. He is now more composed, more happy, and organized. Now, talking about lark, it is not only a bird which rises early and sings, it is a bird which flies high and sings. So it sings while it flies, not while it is sitting on a branch or on the ground. So that is very important because when it flies high and sings, poets often refer to the lark as a bird that prays. So, in the same manner, here we can find that the song of the lark is compared to a prayer. Hymn is a prayer song, and since it is flying high, we can directly think that it is singing to the heaven. Now, let's look at the paraphrase of the last two lines, the couplet. For thy sweet love remembered such wealth brings, that then I scorn to change my state with kings. So thy means your, because thinking about your love brings so much richness to my life that I would rather have it than be a king. So we can see the shift of mood from the first part of the poem to the last part. The poet or the speaker now says that he feels so rejuvenated, so happy that now his state is so good that he won't exchange it with a king. Now let's look at the explanation of the last two lines. The final couplet of Sonnet 29 declares that this joyfulness brought about by a thought of his beloved is enough to convince the speaker that he is better off than royalty or kings. The word state was repeated, it is repeated thrice in the poem, in the second line, in the 10th line, and in the 14th line. So it is a pun or it has more than one meaning. uh, in all these three places we find it's having different meanings. So let's see how in the last quatrain, in the couplet, how it is used. It carries a meaning of emotional well-being and suggests that the love of his friend makes the speaker so happy that all the wealth of a king would not be better. But it also refers to a nation or a kingdom. So in the final line, we find the word state, and we can take it either as the state or the mental state of the speaker, or we can take it as a kingdom or state. Okay, the word state might refer to a range of distinct conditions. On the one hand, the word could refer to the speaker's emotional or mental circumstances. On the other, it might refer to his economic or social position or his social status. Now, in the second line, he is talking about outcast state, which could be the social position or social status of the speaker. In the 10th line, it is more about the emotional state of the speaker. And in the last line, as I told you, it is a pun. It could be read in either way. Now, let's conclude the poem. Such is the optimism and inspiration gained from the memory that a speaker now feels rich, wealthier than a king, better off in all respects. The former darker world fades away. Life is refreshed, and the speaker wouldn't change places with a king. So he can now look at the situation he is in through a different perspective. He can now see the brighter side of his life. Before we conclude, let's look at the rhyme scheme once again. Actually, we have learned it earlier. Now, let's see how it goes in the poem. As we had seen earlier, it is A B C D C D E F G G. So, let's see how the similar rhyming words occur in these lines. Eyes, cries, A. State, fate, B. Hope, scope, C. Possessed, least, D. Despising, arising, E. State, gate, F. And final couplet is G, that is brings and kings. That's all about Sonnet 29. Happy learning. Thank you.